Exactly how much better is Igor Shesterkin than the rest of the goalies that were selected in the 2014 NHL Draft? We discuss on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 868 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And so, going to be doing something a little bit different here in today's episode. We are going to be discussing Igor Shesterkin, and we are going to compare and contrast him to all 13 goalies that were somehow, some way, taken ahead of Igor Shesterkin in the 2014 NHL Draft. For the everydayers, you guys will probably remember I did this either 1 or 2 off seasons ago. I forget which off season it was. You do this for a while, a couple hundred episodes, and everything kind of blends together. But we did an episode just like this about Henrik Lundqvist. Lundqvist, of course, was taken in the 7th round all the way back in 2000. We took a look at every single goalie drafted ahead of him. There were 21 to be exact. And there were some goalies that had some decent careers and maybe even an all-star or two, but no way that could even hold a candle to Henrik Lundqvist. And we're seeing kind of a similar pattern begin to develop with Igor Shesterkin. I've been wanting to do this episode for a while, but given the fact that a lot of these goalies, their stories are still being written. Most of them are kind of like in their mid to late 20s. I wanted to wait a little while here. Igor himself is 27. Give it some time, see if these goalies were going to make their NHL debut, see how they would fare in the NHL. But we've given them enough time. And like I said, their stories are still being written. But right now, for the most part, there's a clear divide between Igor Shesterkin and basically every other goalie that was taken in this 2014 draft class. There is one that, could maybe be in the conversation as being maybe as good as Igor Shesterkin. Some of you might even know who I'm talking about. But with no further ado, let's go ahead and get to the list after we run through Igor Shesterkin's resume really quick. I mean, you guys know he's really good at hockey, obviously. A Vezina winner, an All-Star game appearance, was named to the NHL's first All-Star team. All this before he ever turns 28 years old. You guys know the story. Made his debut in 2019, 2020. He had a situation where Lundqvist and Georgiev were both struggling. Igor had just dominated the AHL. They had to make that move. They did. Igor pretty much never looked back. And he's been the man, pretty much ever since he got the call up. 99 wins in his career, 42 losses, 15 overtime losses. So actually, that'd be a great way on opening night this upcoming season. Let's celebrate Igor Shesterkin's 100th win with an opening night victory for the Rangers. I just thought of that now. But, even if you combine all the losses, the regulation losses and the overtime losses, you're still looking at a situation where Igor has gone 99 and 57. And so basically winning about 2/3 of his games. Career goals against average of 237, career save percentage of 924, and 11 shutouts. Then in the playoffs, 28 games, a record of 13 and 14, goals against average of 245, save percentage of 929, no shutouts. But his goals against average is slightly weaker in the playoffs, but his save percentage is actually a little bit better in the postseason for Igor Shesterkin. So not somebody at all who shies away from the bright lights or the big stage or any of that. So again, what we're going to do, going to go one by one, compare Igor Shesterkin to the other goalies, the other 13 goalies that were taken ahead of him in the 2014 NHL Draft. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and it's just going to be a reminder of how great Igor Shesterkin is and why we as Ranger fans should never, ever take this man for granted. So we'll go ahead, dive right into it here. There were actually no goalies drafted in the first round in 2014, so I suppose, you didn't really have that goalie that was head and shoulders above everybody else or anybody that was maybe looked at as like a franchise-changing type goalie. Nobody taken in the first round. The first goalie taken, Mason McDonald. He goes number 34 overall to the Calgary Flames. First goalie off the board. And if you haven't heard of him, you're not alone. I hadn't really heard of him. I mean, the name was like vaguely familiar, but I don't know. I mean, it might just be one of those things where I've seen this draft class before, and that's why I remember, the name. But he's out of hockey, looking like he was basically a bust of a pick. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean here, but those are that's just kind of the reality of the situation. He most recently played for the Tulsa Oilers of the ECHL, which is the level below the AHL, for anybody that needs a reminder there. When he was on his ELC with the Flames, his ELC ends, and he was not tendered a qualifying offer. This, again, despite being the first goalie taken in the draft that year, becomes a free agent, not a lot of interest, signed a one-year deal with the Colorado Eagles of the AHL Eagles are the AHL affiliate of the Avalanche, could not crack the AHL roster, and was assigned to the ECHL's Utah Grizzlies. Never ended up playing in the NHL, only played 5 AHL games, went 3-1-1 with a 397 goals against average and an 861 save percentage in those 5 games. And his numbers in the ECHL, not really a whole lot better. So obviously that's one down, and one goalie that simply cannot even be put in the same breath as Igor Shesterkin. And that's going to be a theme here as we go through this list. So I mentioned, obviously, McDonald was the first goalie off the board. Second goalie off the board was Thatcher Demko. And this actually, when McDonald was taken at number 34, this actually set off kind of a chain reaction here where we had 4 goalies taken in 6 picks, beginning with McDonald and continuing here 2 picks later at number 36 with Thatcher Demko. He goes to the Vancouver Canucks. He's had a solid career, somebody that's probably going to last in the NHL for a good amount of time. Not an elite goalie or anything like that. He did make the NHL All-Star game in 2022, although, or 2021, I believe it was. But his numbers that year didn't really scream All-Star. 33, 22, and 7, goals against average of 272, save percentage of 915, 1 shutout. I'd imagine it could be a situation where maybe Vancouver just needed an All-Star, or maybe his numbers in the second half kind of fell apart a little bit, and that's why they came back down to earth a little bit. Maybe he was better in the first half. But, again, he's done all right. 81, 67, and 15 for his career, 290 goals against, and a 910 save percentage with 3 shutouts. Won the Mike Richter Award in college. That goes the best college hockey goalie. He did that in 2015-16 with Boston College. He's all right, but once again, not even in the same class as Igor Shesterkin, not by a long shot. I'll keep everything moving along to the very next pick, number 37 overall, and that would be Alex Nedeljkovic, picked by the Carolina Hurricanes. And really, for Nedeljkovic, kind of been a tale of 2 careers. Got off to a nice start with the Carolina Hurricanes. Was solid for them, was even playing in a pretty deep playoff run that they had, I believe, during his 3rd and final season there. Ends up getting traded to Detroit, and frankly was just really, really bad for the Red Wings. Actually ended up getting sent down to the AHL by the Red Wings this past season, what was his 2nd of 2 years that he spent in Detroit. And everything he's done adds up to a record of 42, 38, and 15, 296 goals against average, a 907 save percentage, 7 shutouts. So obviously nothing special here in terms of his career numbers. I did mention him during the offseason as a possibility to be Igor Shesterkin's new backup, but he ends up signing with the Penguins instead. 1 year, $1.5 million. And honestly, I'd rather have Jonathan Quick at the discounted price, especially that he got, just the $800K. So he was somebody that, maybe has a little bit of upside. You figure that he was supported by a great team with the Canes, put up great numbers, played for a not so great team with the Red Wings, put up bad numbers. So the truth maybe is somewhere in between where, you can believe that Nedeljkovic at the very least can be a decent backup goalie in the NHL. But again, somebody who not nowhere near the Igor Shesterkin conversation. We move ahead, 2 more picks, still in the second round here. Number 39, Vitek Vanacek, taken by the Washington Capitals. You guys will remember not too long ago. I mean, it feels like an eternity ago, but it was really just a couple months ago. Rangers basically just lit him up in the playoffs. Games 1 and 2, they win both games by a score of 5-1. One was an empty netter in game 2, but still they got him for 9 goals in the first 2 games. And, we didn't see any more of him for the rest of that series. Despite that, he is a pretty good goalie. He'll give you a chance more often than not when he's on the ice. Spent 2 seasons with the Capitals, this past season with the Devils. Total 131 games, 74 wins, 33 losses, 14 overtime losses. So an impressive win-loss record for sure. A goals against average of 259, a save percentage of 909. So not bad at all. And as far as goals against, he's not that far behind Igor Shesterkin. Vanacek at 259, Igor at 245. Despite that, I think Igor Shesterkin still, hands down, from everyone we've looked at, the best goalie in this draft. Vanacek's probably closer to him than anybody else that we just mentioned, but Igor's got him beat by quite a long shot. And one red flag for Vanacek is that he has gotten absolutely obliterated in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's only played 10 games, so it is a somewhat limited sample size. And of course, you get lit up once or twice in that little amount of games, and your goals against average is going to shoot through the roof. But my God, 10 games, he's got a record of 2-4, goals against average of 452. You heard that right, 452, and a save percentage of 834 for Vanacek. So obviously, I'd rather have Igor Shesterkin in a big game than Vitek Vanacek. We're going to keep everything rolling with this list in just a little bit, dive into some of the later rounds, and eventually we're going to get to the one goalie in this draft class that is close to Igor Shesterkin, in some ways neck and neck with Igor Shesterkin, and we will talk about that goalie and all the rest of the goalies in just a second. But first, we do have to let everybody know today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting on MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you could spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think will hit the first home run. All in an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so we're going to go ahead and keep everything rolling on this list here. First, though, for the everydayers, definitely stick around. We're going to have that crossover episode with Harrison from Locked On Jets. Going to be talking about Blake Wheeler and everything that happened there, and what should we expect from Blake Wheeler as Ranger fans as he now moves over to the East Coast here. And that'll be tomorrow's episode, actually. Going to continue to talk about free agent signings for the Rangers, the draft class as well. But for right now, let's continue our focus on this list here. We've got one more goalie taken in the second round, the second to last pick of the second round. To be exact, this goalie went at number 59 overall. So again, 5 goalies taken in round 2 after none were taken in the first round. That goalie is Brandon Halverson. And if that sounds a little bit familiar, it's because he was drafted by the New York Rangers. Yes, the Rangers themselves took a goalie in this year's draft class before they took Igor Shesterkin. And it's funny because, there's always going to be some comparisons and compare and contrast, Igor Shesterkin to Henrik Lundqvist. And Igor's got a while to go. He's got to keep this up for a bunch more years before we start really having that conversation. But it is interesting, all the similarities. And to throw out one more here, the Rangers themselves took a goalie this year, 2014, Brandon Halverson, before they took Igor Shesterkin. They did the same thing in 2000 when they took Henrik Lundqvist in the 7th round. In that draft, they took a goalie by the name of Brandon Snee. He was taken in the 5th round at number 143. Snee, for the record, never played in the NHL or the AHL, played a handful of games in the ECHL, but obviously, just kind of a footnote in NHL history. And it seems like Brandon Halverson, that's going to be the case with him as well. Again, he was taken in the 2nd round by the Rangers, and 2 rounds before the Rangers ended up taking Igor Shesterkin in the same draft class. Halverson has appeared in a grand total of 1 NHL game. It was with the Rangers back in 2017, 2018. He entered in relief of Henrik Lundqvist. Lundqvist had allowed 5 goals on 27 shots in that game. Halverson ends up playing 13 minutes and gave up 1 goal on 6 shots in a 6-3 loss to the Ottawa Senators. And Halverson, ever since then, and really even before then, split time between the AHL and the ECHL, bounced around quite a bit, never really put up any kind of numbers at any level where you would think that, this guy's a bona fide NHL goalie. As far as I can tell, he last played hockey in 2021 with the Wheeling Nailers of the ECHL. 4 games with them, 0-3, 423 goals against, 860 save percentage. And it looks like he's out of hockey, but at least he got that 1 game as a member of the New York Rangers. And I genuinely mean that. Obviously it didn't work out. 2nd round pick, you have high hopes. And I'm sure he expected to, or hoped at least, to go on to have a really nice NHL career for himself. Didn't work out. But man, you think about how many people on this planet, not many get to ever play in an NHL game. And with Halverson, even just among hockey players, what a small percentage ever gets to play in the NHL, right? And with Halverson, hey, you know what? At least he was there. He got those 13 minutes in an NHL game, made a couple of saves, and, he can always tell that story to anybody that wants to hear it. So that's pretty cool. But obviously, Rangers found their franchise goalie a couple rounds later than maybe they thought they did when they took Halverson here. 2 picks later, the first pick of round 3, we've got Jonas Johansson, I suppose it is, taken number 61 overall by the Buffalo Sabres. Only 35 NHL games to date. 13 were with the Sabres. He struggled with them, moved on to the Avalanche, and has been in their organization ever since. He actually appeared in 3 games with the Avalanche this past season. Went 2-0 with a 210 goals against, a 932 save percentage. But again, just 35 total games at this point for Johansson. 11, 13, and 4 record, 1 shutout, goals against average of 332, and a save percentage of just 887. Does seem to be able to put up decent numbers in the AHL, 233 goals against average this past season with Colorado's AHL affiliate. But again, the odds at this point to him becoming, anywhere near Igor Shesterkin certainly don't seem very high at this point. I guess never say never, but yeah, he'd have to have quite the career arc for that to happen. We go to the middle portions of the third round, and you've got Elvis Merzlikins going number 76 overall to the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's actually still with the Blue Jackets, and of the first 7 goalies that we're talking about in this draft class, Merzlikins is one of only 2 of those first 7 goalies that are still with the team that originally drafted them. The other is Thatcher Demko. He's still with the Canucks, but only 2 of the first 7 that we've mentioned here remain with the team once again that drafted them. But Merzlikins, couple off seasons ago in 2021, got a 5-year, $27 million extension from the Jackets. He's coming off a nice season, still kind of felt like a little bit of an overpay, and he's really not been good at all the last few seasons. 322 goals against 2 years ago, and then last year in 30 games, he ends up with a 423 goals against average and a save percentage of 876. I realize he's not surrounded by an outstanding Stanley Cup contending team, but I'm sure they were hoping to get a little bit more bang for their buck when they signed Merzlikins to that extension. Obviously, it's gone south for him a little bit in recent seasons. We move ahead just 2 spots to the only goalie on this list. I've been teasing this the whole episode. There's one goalie on this list that, you could make the argument. He's right there. He's kind of neck and neck with Igor Shesterkin as far as what they've done so far in their NHL careers. I would still give the edge to Igor, but that goalie is going to be Ilya Sorokin, who the Islanders took with the number 78 overall pick. This pick originally belonged to the Philadelphia Flyers. Sorokin right now, 136 games into his NHL career. He has a record of 70, 46, and 18, or, you could really call it 70 and 64 if we combine all the regulation losses with the overtime losses. So Igor, obviously a far, far better win-loss record compared to Sorokin. Sorokin, though, actually does have Igor beat when it comes to goals against average, albeit very, very close. Sorokin has a 234 goals against. Igor has a 237. And as far as save percentage is concerned, they are tied at 924 thus far into their careers. So I look for Igor to take the lead in both of those stats this upcoming season. We'll see how that whole thing shakes out. But then in the playoffs for Sorokin, 6-5 with a 270 goals against and a 925 save percentage. And Igor actually has him beat in both of those playoff stats. This is probably as good a time as any to mention the video that just kind of randomly surfaced on Twitter. And some of you probably already know what I'm talking about. There was a video, a couple different people posted it. You've got Igor Shesterkin and Ilya Sorokin, and they're just pushing a car from behind. The car is at a standstill, and they line up behind it, at the rear bumper, and they start pushing it forward, and then it starts rolling, and that's what they do. I don't have any context as far as what was going on in this video. Are they training together? Is this part of their workout routine? Did somebody, need a little bit of a hand getting their car I have no idea. And honestly, there's part of me, I don't even want to know the context. I don't even want to know why this was happening or what the situation was. It was just kind of amusing to just watch it. And I think not knowing the context makes it that much more entertaining and that much funnier. I do want it on record, though. When they were both pushing that car, Sorokin stopped before Igor did. Igor got like a couple extra steps after Sorokin kind of, laid off a little bit. So I think Igor, if it was a competition of any kind, Igor won. Look, Sorokin's a heck of a goalie, might have a Vezina in his future, played in the NHL All-Star game this past year, was also a member of the NHL's second All-Star team. Like Igor, they both had spectacular careers in the KHL, video game-like numbers over there. And as far as who emerges as the superior goalie, I mean, right now, I'm going to give the edge to Igor Shesterkin. Obviously, I would say that. I'm a Ranger fan, and I'm sure we're all at least a little bit biased. Islander fans would probably try to make the argument that Sorokin has been better. But I will say this, and I think everybody would agree with what I'm about to say. Igor and Sorokin, as far as who's better, I mean, the story is yet to be written. The case is still wide open. Both these goalies have a long way to go. They're both really just getting started, and they should go on to have spectacular careers. Sorokin, just a couple of weeks ago, in fact, signed an 8-year, $66 million extension with the Islanders, so he'll be there for a while. And Igor Shesterkin, another couple of years left on his contract. You got to figure the Rangers are going to do everything they can to get him locked up to a long-term deal, and hopefully we get many, many years of Igor versus Ilya, battling it out. Certainly in the regular season. I've talked to Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders, though, about this, that the Rangers and Islanders are certainly well overdue to find each other in the playoffs, have a playoff matchup between the Rangers and Islanders. So we'll see. But like I said, this is the only goalie that can even be compared to Igor Shesterkin as far as, players that were taken in the 2014 NHL Draft. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Take a look at the other goalies that were taken just a couple of spots ahead of Igor Shesterkin in some cases. See how they've fared in their NHL careers, their hockey careers. And we will, again, continue to just compare and contrast and have some fun with this countdown here. But yes, we will do that in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. We now move to the fourth round. To be specific, the fourth pick of the fourth round, that would be Ville Husso going at number 94. He was drafted by the St. Louis Blues, spent 2 seasons there, played this past season with the Detroit Red Wings. He is appeared in 113 games, record of 60, 35, and 14, 293 goals against average, 904 save percentage. Again, these are not terrible numbers. They're the kind of numbers that'll keep you in the league probably as a backup. Maybe you're in a little bit of a timeshare. You find yourself on a team where you're kind of neck and neck with the other goalie, and they kind of go with a little bit of a hot hand approach situation like that. Husso's been all right, and he should stick in the league for a while. Decent numbers, but again, nothing eye-popping. And, given a do-over, I would imagine the Blues would probably take Igor Shesterkin with this pick. One pick later, we get the Islanders taking Linus Soderstrom at number 95 overall. Soderstrom is currently playing in the SHL, dealt with some injuries while he was playing for the ECHL affiliate of the Islanders. Once he became an RFA, that's when he headed back to the SHL. Had a heck of a season over there this past year, went 22-7 with a 163 goals against average, a 929 save percentage. But Soderstrom, at least not yet, has never played a game in the NHL or the AHL. Obviously, putting up numbers like that, maybe you help your cause to get another crack at it. But it looks like Soderstrom, if he ever does play in the NHL, he's going to kind of have to take the long road to get back there. And obviously, things have not worked out as well for him as they have for Igor Shesterkin. A little bit later in the fourth round, we get Kaapo Kähkönen, drafted number 109 by the Minnesota Wild. 3 seasons with the Wild for Kähkönen, 2 with the Sharks, and has played in a total of 102 games, going 42, 43, and 12. Has 3 shutouts to go along with a 323 goals against average, 899 save percentage. Again, just not even close to Igor Shesterkin. 2 picks later, we get the Edmonton Oilers taking Zach Nagelvoort. I hope I'm saying that correctly, at number 111 overall. And as far as I can tell, it looks like he might be out of hockey, might have hung up the skates. He did play at Michigan for 4 years of college after being drafted, then played 3 games with the Missouri Mavericks of the CHL, and then ended up with 240 goals against average there and 941 save percentage, but it looks like that was it. I think I misspoke a second ago. He was playing in the ECHL and played 3 games there. But bottom line, never got anywhere close to the NHL. Doesn't look like he ever played in the AHL either. And like I said, it looks like at this point he might have called it a career as far as hockey is concerned. Then finally, the goalie taken ahead of Igor Shesterkin, that would be Brent Moran. He goes number 115 overall to the Dallas Stars. He is still playing. Made his ECHL debut this past season. Didn't really go so great. 8 games for Moran, 428 goals against average, 881 save percentage. And then after that, Igor Shesterkin taken just 3 picks later at number 118 overall. Igor was also the 3rd to last pick of the 4th round. So Igor Shesterkin almost fell into the 5th round. We always talk about him. Oh man, the Rangers got to steal the 4th round. The Rangers stole Igor in the 4th round. Yeah, he almost fell into the 5th round. They got him at the end of the 4th round. And, it's crazy to think just how much different history could be. I mean, take this Brent Moran guy, for example. What if the Stars would have taken Igor Shesterkin? He would have never made it to the Rangers. Was there any goalie of these goalies that I just mentioned that the Rangers preferred to Igor Shesterkin and he just didn't fall to him. Like take Zach Nagelvort. He was taking just a handful of picks ahead of Igor Shesterkin. Is it possible the Rangers would have preferred to have Nagelvort instead of Igor Shesterkin? It's just crazy to think of all these different scenarios as far as how drafts could have played out and how things ultimately did play out. I thought to kind of cap this whole thing off, we could go ahead and take a look at the goalies that were taken after Igor Shesterkin in this year's draft class. There's a handful of goalies that went after Igor. Were there any diamonds in the rough? Was there anybody that some other team found late in this draft that ended up, vastly exceeding their draft expectations? The short answer is no. The slightly longer answer, we'll run through this quickly. In the 5th round, you've got Chase Perry going number 136 overall to Detroit. Alec Dillon goes number 150 to the Kings. Maximilian Pajpach, if I'm saying that correctly, goes number 174 overall to the Avalanche. Hayden Hockey goes number 177 to the Canadiens. Ivan Nalimov goes 179 to the Blackhawks. We then move into the 7th round. Hugo Fagerblom goes number 182 to the Panthers. Kevin Bouchard goes number 183 to the Oilers. And adding those all up real quick, there were 7 goalies overall taken after Igor Shesterkin was drafted, and those 7 goalies have combined for a grand total of 0 NHL games. So safe to say, as far as the steal of the draft, both in terms of goalies as well as just overall players, very clearly it was Igor Shesterkin. So in conclusion, again, I thought this would just be kind of like a fun little experiment here, a little exercise we could do on the show, change things up a little bit, take a look at all the goalies drafted ahead of Igor Shesterkin, and just kind of, reiterate the fact that we are very fortunate. We are very lucky. Not too many teams go right from Henrik Lundqvist to Igor Shesterkin as far as, goalies of that caliber, and the Rangers have. The Rangers don't always get everything right when it comes to the NHL draft. I think we've seen enough proof of that after, the last handful of seasons here, but man, they have knocked it out of the park when it comes to these 2 goalies. And of course, there's a little bit of luck there involved too. I mean, I think they'd be the first ones to tell you with Henrik Lundqvist, a little bit of a dart throw in the 7th round. Otherwise, they would have taken him earlier than that. And probably the same thing with Igor Shesterkin here as well. But again, just a very, very firm reminder for all of us, I think, to never, ever take Igor Shesterkin for granted, and just never take it for granted the fact that he is a New York Ranger, because it very easily could have not happened. The Rangers themselves took a goalie 2 rounds ahead of Igor this year. They could have just taken Brandon Halverson and said, okay, that's it. We're good at goalie. We don't need to draft another goalie. And then who knows where Igor Shesterkin ends up? Probably on one of the Rangers' big rivals in the Metro Division, the way things go for this team sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, I figure we could pretty much call it there. The only other thing I want to mention here, kind of a cool story coming out of Ranger rookie camp. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the 4-day rookie camp the Rangers had not too long ago. I believe it was last week. You had undrafted Sahil Panwar. He is a 21-year-old center and left winger. He has been signed by the Hartford Wolfpack to a 1-year contract. By all accounts, Panwar was one of the most impressive players during the Ranger rookie camp. And certainly as far as undrafted players, it sounds like he was really head and shoulders above the rest. Impressed enough people to end up getting this contract with the Hartford Wolfpack. So good for him. And obviously we'll keep an eye on him as well as all the other Ranger rookies as well. And by the way, with Panwar, 52 points in 34 games for the OHL's Hamilton Bulldogs. So again, point totals like that, that's impressive no matter what level of hockey that you accomplish that feat at. But yeah, I figure we could pretty much call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.